You're listening to the SkateMoreSurfMore podcast, where we talk skateboarding, surfing and progression, looking at habits, tactics and mindsets of top performers so we can increase longevity and have more fun on a board. I'm your host, Pete Adams, bringing you this podcast from Byron Bay, Australia. This week's episode is with GezMcCallum from Sydney's Northern Beaches in Australia. Gez is a competitive surfer, skateboarder and fitness coach. He has competed on the WSL, World Qualifying Series in surfing. He coaches skateboarding and runs fitness classes. He's currently sponsored by Zenka Footwear, MG Surfboards, OAM Accessories, Cafina Espresso, Head Socks, Seaskins Wetsuits, Manly Surfboards and Zigfin Fins. His long list of qualifications include Certificate 3 and 4 in fitness, Level 2 surf coach, Level 1 skateboard coach and an excellence practitioner. We talk about how Gez began, his work to help people compete and perform better at all ages, and why mirrors should be your best friend. So without further ado, here's my conversation with GezMcCallum. You're currently working as a surf, fitness and skate coach, a job that seems like you're spending most of your time between the beach, skate park and a gym, which is pretty amazing. But going back to the beginning, how did you get started with all of this? Was it surfing?
Actually started with skateboarding when I was probably 10 or 11. Surfing something I always wanted to do, but I realistically didn't live close enough to the beach to consistently do it. So I found myself skateboarding daily, really.
Yeah, awesome. And then your surfing did that take off a bit ahead of the skating? Like once you got into the surfing, did you sort of run with that or?
Surfing was more of a sporadic thing for me. When I was younger, I had an uncle that would take me, or mum might take me maybe once a month or once every couple of months. So it wasn't something that I consistently did, something that I wanted to do more consistently. Obviously, I just didn't have the ability to get to the beach frequently enough.
So did you ever compete in skateboarding as you were growing up? Was that something you did? Was there local comps or anything like that going on in your area?
So thinking back to that time now, it was, 20 years ago. I think I've been on a skateboard now for about 22 years, working out the dates. There wasn't really much in terms of local skate events. It was pretty underground and raw 20 years ago. I've lived in French Canada, Quebec, when I was about 14 years old. And I felt the skateboarding community, at least everything was a little more established over there. I started riding for a skate shop in Quebec City there, and they got me involved with some local skate events. So maybe around 14 years old, I was competing a bit just for the 6 months that I lived in Canada. But yeah, in Australia, there wasn't really much going on around then.
Yeah, no way. That's amazing. And then when you started surfing after that, and you got more into surfing, was that joining a board riders club or was it just surfing with friends that got you sort of further along in that?
Yeah, as I came out to the Northern Beaches a little more frequently, straight away I was introduced into a community where I met a lot of people that were currently competing, I guess, in the junior series or within local board riders communities. So I saw straight away the local side of competition and I guess almost more the international level that all these people were associated with. And yeah, almost straight away I kind of established myself into, at that time it was Freshwater Board Riders Club. So yeah, that gave me a little insight into competing and how people compete.
Yeah. And did you find, not growing up with so much time on the beachfront, but skating a lot, did you find that helped translate into progressing quicker on a surfboard, or did you struggle with the sort of water knowledge that maybe the other kids at that age had from growing up with nippers and all that sort of stuff?
I actually used to watch every single surf video and read every single surf magazine meticulously. So I actually understood maybe all the different body positions people used to get up onto. And as bad or as corny as this is, I used to even practice maybe a pig dog pop-up on my bed, imagining I was pulling into a barrel after watching crazy footage of the box and right point and all these waves that I was like, it was so far outside of where I was or the level I was, but I could actually imagine and visualize myself doing that. I found the skateboarding thing really separate because obviously I was pushing myself in a different way, street skateboarding. So throwing yourself down a set of stairs or a handrail is pretty far from surfing. But I felt that the commitment that you need to do that definitely helped me push myself in the water, because either paddling over the ledge of a wave or, committing to a heavy end section really didn't seem as serious as maybe throwing yourself down a set of stairs that could a lot of the time leave you with an injury and you'd be out for a long time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting that for you found the skateboarding almost gave more advantage on the mental side of things. It's definitely something I found when I started surfing. I was like, this is amazing. I can go and do this thing every day and generally not get injured, generally not feel like aching afterwards. I found growing up skateboarding, you sort of got to the end of it and you're like, man, I need a beer or some ibuprofen or something. Whereas surfing, you get out and you actually felt better than you did going in. And I love what you said about practicing positions in your bedroom, because I don't know if you were watching the CT the other week when Italo Ferreira admitted that at 5 a.m. he'd been practicing his pig dog stance before going out at the box, which is amazing. So,
yeah, that was so funny. Like listening to maybe one of who I consider at the moment one of the best and most progressive surfers in the world. I definitely find Italo the most exciting surfer for me to watch in the world, as he's goofy. But yeah, that definitely made me laugh and feel a bit better for doing it all those years in the bed, even with an old board without wax on it in the bed, just when I knew no one else was there watching.
Amazing. And when you're working with all the Grommies coming up these days, is that something you ever do with them? I know we've done a few coaching sessions and we've done a little bit of sort of body positioning work on the beach. Do you find that's quite a big part of your sort of coaching?
I find it... I tell all the kids to do it, and I hope that they would do it at home. I think that using the mirror at home is a beautiful thing to do, because you're your own best critic. If you want to work on style or something like that, to get the repetition in the surf, it's quite a hard thing. Obviously, with the new wave pools coming in, it's going to be easy to get that repetition of the same move in the same section. But using the mirror at home and correcting your own body position in terms of both style and functionality, it's such a valuable tool to then use on your surfboard. I did make a little YouTube clip for people I coach that I think it actually seems to be the older people, the more men in their 30s or 40s, or the same thing with the women that seem to have used that tool the most. But I do reiterate to the kids all the time, use the mirror.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's definitely, it seems like the coaching's picking up a lot with the older generation as they sort of want to improve, much similar to how people would go get a golf or a tennis coach. And they're starting to take on that advice and sort of, I guess in a way, lose the ego and be open for some criticism. So with those sort of body position training that you did with the surfing, did that ever tie into your skateboarding? Did you start approaching your skateboarding in a similar fashion?
Well, what's interesting with that is with my skateboarding, when I was a kid, I used to go in the backyard every day. I never played a video game, and I wanted to actually be able to do every single flat ground trick, both normal and switch, and same thing with every grind. I used to imagine and practice myself jumping onto the tricks or jumping into those body movements without a board all the time. I'd do it every day. So I found that naturally that's how I wanted to coach in surfing, because that's how I'd taught and self-coached myself, I guess, through skateboarding for so many years, that I thought it was such an important pivotal part in learning and growing as a surfer that you needed to be able to do these movements out of the water and off the board. Does that make sense? Yeah,
that's amazing. Roughly how old were you when you were sort of coming up with this? Because this sounds pretty forward thinking if I think of myself as a younger skateboarder.
12, 13 years old. I was like meticulous every single day when I wasn't injured, in the backyard, just either with a piece of wood to create a ledge, or just literally on the flat ground, just repetition. And then when I couldn't get something or didn't understand a foot position, then I would just go back to the straight body movement of it. Whether it's a crooked grind, I was literally jumping on with my front leg landing And then I was thinking in terms of style as well, because I felt that was a really big, important part, how you looked when you were on a grind or in the air. So I'd draw it in my school books, and then I would try and replicate that afternoon at home.
That's amazing. Absolutely love that as an approach. Definitely something we should take on board. And then back to the surfing. At what stage did you start to enter sort of higher level surf contests? Because I know you've done a few WQS ones over your time.
So after the initial board riders entry, I started with Freshwater Board Riders Club, and then I moved across to Queenscliff Board Riders Club, because at the time I felt like the level of competition was really high and I really wanted to push myself with that. And then from there, they introduced me to this tag team style format where you could compete against other clubs. And then that led me into surfing a lot with one of my good friends at the time, Dan Karen, who had left the Pro Junior Series and started doing some WQS events. And there was a 6-star event in Kangaroo Island. And he was like, hey, entry spots are open. There's availability. Why don't you sign up and let's make a trip out of this? Even last place, you get $600. And I was like, okay, this is a lose-lose situation. And we can make a surf trip out of it. And that was my introduction into a WQS. Was actually one of the top-level 6-star events. And that gave me a taste for competing at the higher level. And I loved it. It pushed my surfing, allowed me to see and interact with people that I'd always seen in videos and movies. In fact, Mark Occhilupo, I think, was paid to do that event. So being able to compete and be around your idols, for me, that was a dream. And it was a dreamscape for me to push myself as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Definitely sounds like something that would have helped push your own surfing and inspire you and really bring you to that next level. And I know QBC is definitely pretty competitive, and there are a load of good guys kind of competing out of that one, so that must have been great as well. And what stage did fitness then start coming into this? Because you're quite a well-qualified fitness coach now, so it's definitely become a super important part of your life.
Well, I remember when I was about 17 years old, or maybe just turning 18, I was just skateboarding a set of stairs, and I was doing a warm-up trick down a 9-stair, a frontside 180, and I kicked the board down in the air and it hit something on the ground and bounced back under my foot. And so I landed, exploded all the ligaments in my ankle, and then remember the doctor telling me, hey, look, mate, it's probably never going to be the same again. And I was like, they hit me like a ton of bricks to the head, and I was like, start feeling depressed and sick, and then doing the rehab from that injury actually, and starting to understand the balance work and mobility needed, and it just started giving me a taste of what the body's capable of, not only in terms of recovery, but in terms of performance, and I think that really sparked the body awareness for me, and it's kind of just been a trickle-on effect from there.
Yeah, I think that term body awareness is really important, because that's definitely something that I personally didn't have until I came to surfing, and I started seeing people training, and I mean, even just being in Australia and seeing more culture of sort of yoga and stretching and all of that sort of stuff that I just hadn't really applied in my skating. I definitely known I needed to stretch more, but I didn't really know what to do. So following on from those sort of physio sessions, what was your next step as far as looking to enhance your knowledge in that area?
Well, the same person I said that I did my first WQS event with, Dan Karen, before events, me and him were just training like crazy every day. So we'd wake up, we were working together at the time as well. We'd be waking up at dawn, training, surfing, going to work, and then we were skating at nights as well. So at that time, I felt like I was understanding my body more and more the more we trained. We were surfing lots. And then at the time we were working for a surfboard company, and I just quit my uni degree because I was doing a double degree and I felt like it wasn't taking me in the avenue that I wanted to with life. And then actually personal training felt like the perfect avenue to release this energy and move forward with it.
Yeah, so that was then where you did a personal training course or something. Is that where you went?
Yeah, I did my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness, which then led me on to this guy, Jason Thomas, who at the time he's like an exercise physiologist. And I did this excellence course with him where we understand your myofascia and how to release the body and how the body should move and function. Ended up studying with him, and that really allowed me to understand the true biomechanics of how to release, how to maneuver and manipulate the body, not only in terms of rehab, but also in terms of performance.
Yeah, so it's not just about sort of rehabbing you back to sort of your standard health. It was then about working out how to get up to higher levels while still skating and surfing regularly and taking on all of that sort of impact on the body, I guess, of those sports.
Definitely. Everything, unfortunately, like my two loves, are extremely high impact on your body. Both in terms of your aerial high impact, but just the general wear and tear it would put on your body with the constant either pushing or on a skateboard, paddling. Everything we do is high impact and draining on the body. So it's understanding how to maintain that. How can you maintain your body whilst improving performance on it?
Definitely. And right now you've got a little bit of an injury in your impact fracture in your wrist, which perfectly brings me to the next question. How do you manage injuries whilst maintaining the other sports? So I find, if you get an injury that's going to keep you out the water, you can still skate and do fitness training, but you've got to work to a different level. And how do you find that works for you?
Well, currently I have a fracture in my scaphoid and carpal, like the double fracture in my wrist. Generally, it should stop me surfing, but I do have a waterproof cast on. So currently I am surfing and skateboarding still. But say with ankles, I've done both ankles. If I had a cast on my ankle, I was still paddling in the water. So I'd take out a gun, maybe like a 9.6, and just paddle from headland to headland maybe, just to keep my mind active and sane. When I've done shoulders, that's the worst, dislocated shoulder. That one is a bit harder. So could not skate, couldn't surf. What can I do? Literally have to pedal an exercise bike. But got to keep the body moving to keep yourself sane, I think, is one of the biggest things. Not only in terms of like obviously maintaining the physical standard you expect your body to be at, but for the mental clarity. I mean, the release of endorphins that exercising gives you, it does make you happier, gives you sustained and better energy. If you drop that exercise off or the body movement off, you do feel deflated. So I think that's been the most important thing for me through injuries, is to not feel sorry for myself or that deep depression that you feel because of the extreme endorphin release we get from these extreme sports. Keep the body moving at all costs.
Yeah, that's a great bit of advice. And it's definitely a hard balance to sort of balance that rest and recovery, especially after a big injury, and then trying to get back on your feet as quickly as possible and really start moving. And so with you've entered a couple of WQS events over the years. Do you still set yourself goals regarding those? Do you sort of set out goals at the start of each year or just take it as it comes?
Yeah, for me, my goals are probably much more minor than everyone else I'm competing against. I guess people on the WQS level, they're like, I want to qualify for the World Tour. For me, I've always just dreamed of being able to surf at that level. Coming in late and, not doing the junior and younger events that those people did. For me, it's just about making heats. If I can make a heat for personally and just establish that my surfing is up to scratch for that level, for me, that's reaching a goal. Currently, my goals are a little bit different. I do certain WQS events just because I love competing and I love pushing myself at a higher level. But in terms of surfing and skateboarding goals, at the moment, they're more either trick or wave orientated. So that might be a certain big wave that I want to get, a certain maneuver I want to get. And same thing with skateboarding. My goals currently, it's just more trick and wave related.
Awesome. So it's a bit, I'd say shorter term. It depends how it can not be quite so long term, but the kind of smaller goals, a bit more bite-sized chunks that you can aim towards
Definitely.
at a time. Awesome. And when you do compete, you say you love competing, and there's definitely a certain sort of mindset and competitiveness needed to enjoy that pressure. Do you have a specific warm-up or mental routine or phrase or something you go through before you go into that contest to get yourself in the right frame of mind?
Before every surf or skate, I have a warm-up that I do. I feel that you definitely can't perform at your best unless everything is feeling right and moving right, because I guess once you do something at a certain level, you expect to perform at a certain level every time you either hit the board. So every contest, I stick to that same warm-up that I would do before every surf or skate. The difference with a competition is I focus on breathing, and I guess people do a meditation. It's a form of that, a way that I clear my head, slow my heart rate down, and then focus on my breathing, because that way I feel that I make the best decisions. And I think competing, it's all about decision making.
Yeah, definitely. And is that something as well you start working with the kids you coach in surfing? Is that something you get them to work on in a sort of general session rather than sort of waiting until they're already at the contest and it's like, okay, now you've got to start learning how to release that breath? Definitely.
Preparation is everything. You want to control as many factors, especially in surfing, as you can, because it's such an unpredictable environment that we compete in. So heat preparation is a huge thing, and you need to practice good habits. So preparing for heats and routinely doing that at home, also doing practice heats so that surfing in that time frame doesn't make you feel as rushed or as frantic as it would on the day. I think everything has to happen and be prepared before the actual contest day, almost long before that, so that you are just going there to put on a performance. So if you're going there to coach someone in the event, you've already run this through so many times that you're just talking through and you're making sure they feel calm, and again, they're making good decisions.
Yeah, definitely. So would you have one sort of bit of advice that you tend to always find yourself giving to the sort of, I'd say sort of 15 to 20-year-old surfers or skaters coming up and who look like they've got a bit of a future? Is there one thing that seems to come up regularly as a kind of point of note?
So if I'm talking in terms of competition, it's one of the best things that someone ever told me: breathe. Focusing on your breath and slowing your heart rate down is the most crucial part of putting on a good performance. If we're looking at in terms of overall preparation, I think dedication is a huge word, and it's something, dedication and focus. I feel that a lot of the younger generation now, especially in terms of skate coaching, I find it incredibly frustrating, and someone tries a trick 10 times and they kind of get over it and want to move on. I know that one of my good mates that films me, he gets frustrated because it could be 80 tries in, literally 80 tries, at least we've counted the videos, and I still want more because I haven't landed it. I feel that that's something that I really strive for the younger generation to understand, is dedication and focus.
Love it. Dedication's definitely a big one. And I think in skating, because you've got that sort of unmoving obstacle, unlike in surfing, you've got the ability to go to something until you either land it or you're broken or feel sick. You really can. And I've definitely done it myself. You've pushed as hard as you can push and you're sort of barely able to stand, but it's that dedication that helps you to get there and get the trick in the end. And when it comes to working with the kind of older crew of, say, 20 to 30, are there things there that you've got that would come up often as like, this is what you need to work on the most?
If we look at, I guess, in skateboarding, the older crew that you tend to coach, they're generally more at the novice level. Not to be rude to anyone, but anyone that's kind of the 30-year-old that's been on a skateboard for that long, there's probably going to be a big stigma towards coaching, because it's definitely something that was not around when I was younger, and it's still almost looked at taboo in skateboarding. It's the coaching culture, unless you're at the top level now going through, it's still taboo and not done. So skateboarding, the older crew, you're definitely looking at safety. How do I approach this sport safely without injuring myself? Surfing, on the other hand, I think it comes back to, a lot of time, it's either ocean awareness and body awareness is the two biggest things. Teaching someone how to read the ocean, what to look for in certain conditions, what maneuvers might be applicable to those conditions, and for the older crew wanting to push themselves, how do we safely attack and approach bigger volumes of water moving? Because that is something that's very intimidating to people. And then the body movement style, you find that a lot of older people, yes, they want to be able to do something, but can your body get into the positions it needs to and understand to move that way? So you need to be able to create a connection from the top of your body down to your board and make it move the way you want it to. So that then comes into, you need body awareness and you need to be able to functionally move in the right ways.
Yeah, definitely. And that shows a lot with where the fitness aspect and all of that understanding of the body movement comes into the surfing and being able to help people to move properly through those positions. And I think as well, it's really interesting there how video sessions help with surfing, because it's creating a connection in your mind between what you feel like you did and what you actually did. And even I've noticed, even just after a few sessions like that, you can start to dissect a little bit more. You'll do a turn, you're like, I felt good, but I think I was slightly out of position here. And you can connect a better connection there between kind of the realities and what actually you feel like you're doing. We'll wrap it up in a couple of minutes. But you said growing up you loved watching all the surf videos, reading the magazines. Do you still have videos or music or anything that you'll listen to before surfing or skating to get you hyped and get you in that mindset?
All the time. There is, depending on what mood I'm in, but I definitely like some fast pace, especially with skating. We still do it, bring a boombox down and there is music going a lot of the time. It definitely lifts the energy of a session. But before I go out in the surf, depending on what I've been listening to that week, I always have one last final when I put the weddy on. I love maybe headphones in, one last final song just to get the mind going and get me super hyped for that session.
Awesome, I love it. And who in the surf or skate world at the moment is inspiring you the most?
Well, skateboarding, that it changes really depending on the mood, because certain days I feel like skating bowl, and then I might watch something from a Vans Park series like today. Alex Sorrente, watching something like that gets me super psyched. Or if I'm feeling more technical, can never go past Day One Song, because I think he's an absolute magician on a skateboard. Surfing, again, that it comes into what I'm about to surf. But I mean, for me, the way John Florence approaches a big barrel and just the calm and ease that he seems to feel in heavy chunks of water, for me, that's really inspiring. If I'm looking at something more like a radical beach break session, then Italo Ferreira at the moment I think brings the most energy, and that's something that I really want in my surfing. I'd love to have that speed, energy and spark that those guys seem to be able to portray on a wave.
I think you're going to need a couple more coffees every day to get that then if you're looking for that Italo energy. I love that, and I find when I'm watching stuff before a surf or a skate, for the visual aspect, I really try to watch people who ride in the same stance as me. So I'm lucky I've got John Florence. I can always go and watch somebody riding regular. Yeah. But then in skating, I absolutely love watching sort of Shane O'Neill footage, but he's a goofy foot. So I find that difficult. Do you find that you would prefer to watch somebody in the same stance as you, or are you all right to kind of mentally transition it across?
It's funny you said Shane O'Neill, because if I'm going to skate a park like Mona Vale, for me, his skateboarding is probably the most applicable to that park. So again, I would maybe watch a Shane O'Neill clip before I'd skate that park. I think in terms of visualization, I know this is weird, but I can probably visualize myself doing what they're doing regardless of the stance. For me, it's more the approach in the way that they set up either each trick or a wave. What line does the surfer take into that maneuver, and what's their body position? And in the skate world, how fast are they going? What's their foot positioning? And how low are they getting in or out? And is their shoulders moving? For me, watching all those little bits, regardless of the stance, gives me the best approach for when I want to go try that trick or wave.
Awesome. I absolutely love that. And I'm going to wrap it up there because that's a good note. Now you can go and watch your favourite skate or surf video and think about all of those little intricacies. Big thanks to Gez for his time today, and thanks to you for listening. I know I found that conversation really interesting, and I hope you did too. I'd love to do a part 2 with Gez soon and dive deeper into some of those ideas. His work with sport-specific movements and using mirrors to perfect technique prior to being on a board can help us all improve a bit quicker, and would definitely help reduce injuries. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, goodbye. Thank you for listening to the SkateMoreSurfMore podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and you can also follow us on Instagram at SkateMoreSurfMore, or on YouTube by searching SkateMoreSurfMore. For coaching and trick tips, visit howtoskate.com.au. See you next time.